Hey, good morning, YouTube. What's going on out there? Checking in with you this morning. Still haven't got things the way I like it here. What's going on? Looks like we got Bug Out Bubba checked in with us earlier. If he's still with us. What's going on? Specific topic? Maybe just the economy, the impending trade war might be our specific if you call just a broad review specific, but we'll see where we go. It's kind of the way it goes. Walter Davis is with us. Thanks for sharing your rally yesterday, Walter. I saw yours and Black Cat when he was going into the house there. I got to catch him going through the crowded lines and stuff. Killdeer Survival, good morning. What's going on? And Wes S is with us. Conspiracy. Maybe somewhat, maybe not. Maybe it's all just pre-planned, which I guess it's a conspiracy in that respect, though, right? Just because you say conspiracy doesn't mean it's not true, right? So what all's been going on out there, folks? China's been getting ready for a real war, and Trump's trying to start a trade war. Who's going to win, I guess would be the question. In a lot of that respects, it seems like. But we was yet to be determined. But the markets definitely got shook up from the whole thing. Interestingly, in particular was the bond market. Was waiting for that to pop up a little bit, but I don't know that the Chinese have played their ace card of dropping a ton of their bonds into the market yet. That's going to be the real issue if the economics gets to it and it's in their interest. But Right now, they're still living off of our off our economy. Hey, Dad on YouTube's with us too. Yeah, Walter Davis, Black Cat was a very good video. I enjoyed it, but he hung it for the long term. You didn't live stream, did you, Walter? You just did the one afterwards, right? Truth Freeze with us. RG Homestead, good morning. Yeah, good video yesterday, Dad. That was right on point. I think I briefly saw your response there. Everybody gets free lunch now. We were much more conniving back then. We were just kids that would eat anything that you gave us. So we figured out a way to do it, you know? Killdeer's waiting to get a truck. All right. Jay Sparks is with us. Good morning. Right on. So yeah, the trade war, impending trade war, is kind of the theme of the day. But just a couple things going on. Futures are headed downward. What does that really mean for us, right? Well, it kind of depends on what angle it takes. We've covered a lot of the things. I mean, we were talking about this last year at this time. We're checking in on soybean imports, soybean prices, all the food related, rice, and everything else that could have been affected through tariffs and other means. There was the talk of China getting a lot of their food from displaced South African farmers that were going to Russia. Lots of things going on that probably just can't keep up with. And we're only going to see the signs and symptoms of after we realize it's already went down. So best prepare as best you can, right? But the effects of a trade war can't be good on anybody. Between increased prices and job loss being just a few of those, depending on where it might be. And then the real war that might kick off as a result is also concerning, I guess you'd say. So China's confirmed they're going to head to the U.S. for another round of trade negotiations. Stocks pretty much everywhere are down. Everybody is concerned about the future. And you're talking, this quote here, reality is setting in that they are not going to get the master deal, the grand deal that they are hoping for, or more like not hoping for, the one Trump's been promising for like over a year now. It's like every other week there's a new quote there was a new quote like every week. Oh yeah, the trade deal is going really well. We're going to have this great trade deal. And everybody bought into it and thought that there would be this massive economic stimulus program coming through trade with China. And might be just the opposite. But this is an asset manager quoting here from Bloomberg TV. Our best guess is that these tariffs will be implemented on Friday, but will then be reversed relatively quickly. So they're, again, hoping for a good deal that Trump's going to promise us, I guess you'd say. So this is kind of graphs and technical stuff on the zero hedge here, but just to give you an idea of kind of the feel of things. It's kind of one of those, it may be an overreaction up front if they actually come through with anything. But again, they've been going at this for 2 years now. And all of a sudden you get slammed with we're going to tariff $200 billion worth of products. So Oxford economist says he expects the situation to de-escalate as the issue seems solvable, and the head negotiators continue with his plan to travel to Washington for talks. Nonetheless, the probability of renewed escalation of the U.S.-China trade war has risen substantially, which would be a drag on the respective economies, especially on China. And as China starts dragging down, it's going to slow everything down. What else? Who else we got checking here? Chance B, good morning. Northern Mexico. Sounds scary. Not New Mexico? Or are you just talking about Southern California? What's going on? Rich Mod, what's going on? 9 days. Oh, crazy times you're living, Glitch. Crazy times. Midwest Preppers joined us. Right. That's the whole thing, Midwest. You just never know. That's why you just keep an eye on it. And if it is the event, at least you're kind of not knowing is half, or knowing is half the battle, right? Because not knowing is half the reason we get into problems. Lack of information makes us itchy, you know. That's it's part of the whole process, just part of the exercise. It's not so much you can do anything about it or prevent anything, but at least you can continue to see how it can affect your impact in your AO, right? And or even get a feel for it, because you really don't know at this point how big of an impact it can have. Again, if they drop bonds, if they between oil prices, other economic impacts, who knows how much of a deflationary or inflationary impact it could have. Some bullet points from Bloomberg, and I hadn't got around to putting any of these in the description box, had I? So I need to do my due diligence and drop some of this out there for later reference, or for reference now. If you guys refresh, we'll put some links in the description box for review. But China's going to visit this week for trade talks, which is only about 2 more days worth, I guess you'd say. Like you don't, and the thing is, like, they don't know what they're negotiating already. So either something is close to fruition, or it's just a showmanship. Because after all this time, you would think things would be pretty close. German factory orders rose for the first time in 3 months. Everything is just kind of on hold now. Markets in China were flat overnight for us. U.S. interest rates are in the right place and don't need to be lowered, although weak inflation merits close watching, according to Robert Kaplan, President and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. Interest rates are in the right place. Is that right? So just come of the things. So that's one story on that. There was another one, future looking, not so much on the what is this going on. So again, zero hedge, trade war in May and go away. So again, quoting the president's here, planned tariffs on 200 billion Chinese imports, 25% import tariff on $200 billion of goods. That's a huge, 25%. And you got to figure, what's the government going to do with all this money, right? Waste it as usual. So here's a quote here. Who is this? It doesn't tell me. So quote, wow, what is this? Maybe it's the president. While many have believed a trade war will be resolved without consequence, there are 2 very important points that most mainstream analysts is overlooking. For investors, a trade war would likely negatively impact earnings and profitability while slowing economic growth through higher costs. Yeah, the sad thing is somehow they've figured out it's cheaper to do any number of things in China even so much as raising food in America, shipping it to China for packaging, and then shipping it back. Somehow that has become profitable. I don't understand how shipping things across the ocean 10,000 miles round trip is still profitable, but they were doing it. Future outlooks, stuff like that. Confidence at record highs. Trump has room to play hardball with China on trade. So they give him 3 bullets here. The problem is that China knows time is short for the president, and subsequently there is no rush to conclude a trade deal for several reasons. So this is China's motivations they're hypothesizing here. China is playing a very long game. Short-term economic pain can be met with ever increasing levels of government stimulus. I guess that would be on both ends, them and ours. Actually, they say here the U.S. has no such mechanisms currently, but explains why Trump and Vice President have been suggesting the Fed restarts QE and cuts rates by 1%. So they're saying that's part of the trade war, not just part of the stagnant economy. Says the pressure's on the Trump administration to conclude a deal, not on China. Trump needs a deal done before 2020, before the election, basically, and he needs the markets and economy to be strong. That's a fact. We've talked about that a little bit here. That much of it has to do with keeping that economy afloat up until the last moment of re-election, and then it won't matter so much. And third, as this has been stated before, China is not going to jeopardize its 50 to 100-year economic growth plan on a current president who will be out of office in the next 5 years at most. It is unlikely the next president will take the same hardline approach, and so agreeing to something that is unlikely to be supported in the future is unlikely. Is also why many parts of the trade deal already negotiated don't take effect until after Trump is out of office. Oh, who knew? I hadn't read that much into it. Interesting. But the tariffs go into effect Friday, potentially. I wonder how much people are willing to deal with that. The Chinese are definitely better at long-term outlook and motivations, I guess, than we are with our instant gratification of booming economy and low interest rates and everything else. Low unemployment, supposedly, and everything else. So that's on the zero hedge as well in there. Insight Freedom's joined us. Good morning. Dad checked out already? Jay Sparks, is it possible a so-called trade war is just to cover the fact the economy is crashing? Possibly. I guess anything is possible. Trump has made statements when he was on the campaign trail that clearly showed he understood the impact the Fed had on things, and him begging the Fed to lower interest rates and do another round of QE, I think shows his understanding of the situation even more, even when we're supposedly at this great economic progress, but yet he begs for stimulus and lower interest rates shows he knows things are that bad or how bad they could get. And so I would say he's in on it. He's just trying to keep the ship afloat for his term. That's all I would say. Wars and rumors and wars, right? Truth. Walmart would be sort of made in China. Hey, HRM Weapons Machinist, good morning. People want to borrow. Under Clinton, chicken could also be raised, butchered here, sent to China and packaged. Right. Right, Truth. I've heard stories about stuff like that. It's like, how is that affordable? I don't understand how that is effective price-wise, but that's what they've been doing for years. HRM says the communists plan to rule the world. So you made the move, Jay Sparks? Hopefully you get your water in soon and get everything set up. You'll be ready to go. Now just got to deal with the heat. So the markets aren't quite open yet. Still awaiting to see what the effects are there. One other interesting article that came up out of the Drudge today. This is one of those we told you so moments. But this is out of the Guardian, of all places. Universal basic income doesn't work. What are the odds? So yeah, the second statement, let's boost the public realm instead. So yeah, if we can't give people all the money we want, so we're just going to put government everywhere so that nobody is affected negatively by anything at any time. Money solves and economics solves all problems, right? Maybe not. So I guess the writer here is the author of a book, Universal Basic Income, A Union's Perspective. So they want government omnipresent in all parts of everything. But this should be interesting. We've been talking about how handouts and stuff don't work, and universal basic income is like the highlight of the pinnacle of socialist planning, I guess you'd say. It's really part of the future movement of machines replacing everybody and everybody just getting a little stipend to feed themselves, I guess you would say, because they're not going to have a job because of all the robotics and AI taking over to serve their masters, I guess you'd say. So there'd be no place for the average person who used to work in a factory or whatever just to get by. But a study published this week sheds doubt on ambitious claims made for universal basic income, the scheme that would give everyone regular unconditional cash payments. Keyword unconditional cash payments, not like, is welfare or some of the current unemployment benefits, are they conditional? I guess if you're on unemployment, the condition is you don't work, but it's not like they make people qualify in a lot of respects for a lot of that stuff. It's pretty straightforward. But anyway, I digress. Universal basic income. So its advocates claim it would help to reduce poverty, narrow inequalities. And there's some devil in the details there. Narrow inequalities. Yes, it will narrow inequality. It'll make everybody equally poor. And tackle the effects of automation on jobs and income. Yes, that'll definitely part of the agenda. Research conducted for Public Services International, a global trade union federation, reviewed for, is that like from Star Wars, the Trade Federation? Reviewed for the first time 16 practical projects that have tested different ways of distributing regular cash payments to individuals across a range of poor, middle income, and rich countries, as well as copious literature on the topic. I think what they don't understand, these groups, is they don't understand what money is. And we'll hit that at the end here, I guess. But that's their basic default, is they don't understand money. And that's why they fail in these endeavors at all times. So in this study, it could find no evidence to suggest that such a scheme could be sustained for all individuals in any country in the short, medium, or long term, or that this approach would achieve long-lasting improvements in well-being or equality. I wonder why that is. Money doesn't solve problems. That's not its purpose. Money is a basic economic tool. That's what they don't get. It's not a end-all, be-all of anything. Research confirms the importance of generous, non-stigmatizing income support. That's another key catchphrase, non-stigmatizing. They don't want anybody to feel bad for being poor. I remember growing up, we were fairly not well off. And was what it was. If anybody wanted to stigmatize you, it was their problem, not yours. That's how you grow up to have self-esteem. Is you don't worry about what other people think about you. But everything turns on how much money is paid, under what conditions, and what consequences for the welfare system as a whole. So from Kenya, southern India, to Alaska and Finland, cash payment schemes have been claimed to show that UBI works. In fact, what's been tested in practice is almost infinitely varied, with cash paid at different levels and intervals, usually well below the poverty line, and mainly to individuals selected because they are severely disadvantaged, with funds provided by charities, corporations, development agencies more often than by governments. How long is this? Okay, we'll have to truncate some of this, but we'll get through the gist of it. Been experiments in India and Kenya by UNICEF, and a U.S. charity Give Directly, supported by Google. So it's a different type of experiment, because if it doesn't come through the government, it's definitely a different proposition, because what they're trying to compare it to is actually a government program. So money is given to people in selected villages for fixed periods of time. Giving small amounts of cash to people who have next to nothing is bound to make a difference. And indeed, these schemes have helped to improve recipients' health and livelihoods. But nothing is revealed about longer-term viability. Okay, how about the Alaska Fund here? So obviously that comes off of Alaska's use of natural resources. They pay out to every individual in the state. In 2018, that payment was $1,600 per person. The scheme is popular and enduring. They're calling it a scheme, and I think they, again, don't understand what money is. Has nothing to do with the scheme. Especially in Alaska's case, it is compensation to the people for the use of the resources of the state, but they don't see it that well. These people are looking at it as trying to make people more prosperous. No, it's compensation. Again, these people don't know what money is. So it has been found to produce some positive impacts on rural indigenous groups, and it makes no claim to sufficiency, and has done nothing to reduce child poverty or to prevent widening income inequalities, again, because that's not its purpose. Finland had a 2-year trial of something that's here from January 2017 to December 2018. They did monthly payments of £560 to 2,000 unemployed people. What could go wrong? But they have refused to fund further expansion there in Finland. This told us little about UBI, except when push comes to shove, elected politicians may balk at paying for a universal scheme. I'm glad they call it a scheme, because it is a scheme. I'm glad they keep self-titling that themselves, because that's all it is a scheme. So they've found these different examples of successes moderately and failures. Scrolling down to see if they have any conclusions. Wait, is that the end? Oh, I zipped through that faster than I thought. So they say here, money spent on cash payments cannot be invested elsewhere. The more generous the payments, the wider the range of recipients. The longer the scheme continues, the less money will be left to build the structures and systems that are needed to realize UBI's progressive goals. That's her words, not mine. So this report also broke down that if cash payments are allowed to take precedence, there's a serious risk of crowding out efforts to build collaborative, sustainable services and infrastructure, and setting a pattern for future development that promotes commodification rather than emancipation. This may also explain why UBI has attracted support from Silicon Valley, who are more interested in defending consumer capitalism than in tackling poverty and inequality. Everybody's trying to get around the wrong thing at the wrong way. And Silicon Valley doesn't support capitalism. They support crony corporatism. They're just trying to stay on top. Redistributing the personal tax allowance and developing the idea of universal basic services could offer a more promising alternative. So they're trying to find ways that the government does things instead of just giving people money. They just have things out there in the government space that help people, right? But again, that's going to be as problematic as all the other current government programs, from everything from family services, family planning, community health. I mean, any number of things that they try to get out there that for underprivileged people to take advantage of, that very often is left unused because people in a lot of their natures seek to be independent. So it says here, healthcare and education are obvious examples, and has argued that a similar approach should be applied to areas such as transport, housing, social care, and information. So basically build as many public transportation and public housing. I don't know what social care is other than healthcare, but social care. What is social care? It's a new term. Look for that term, social care. And they want areas such as information. So what, give everybody a computer so they have all the information at their fingertips? What, free Wi-Fi for everybody? Yeah. Something like that, probably. Everyday essentials that should be available to all. Everyday essentials. Collective provision offers more cost-effective, socially just. There's that key word. Another one, social justice is imperative. Redistributive and sustainable ways of meeting people's needs than leaving individuals to buy what they can afford in the marketplace. So the government is once again striving to meet people's needs, which is not their purpose, not their mandate. At least here in America, it's not their mandate. It really was not their mandate anywhere. But so back to the thing about money, though, just the key thing to maybe using your toolbox or whatever. Money is just a representation of labor and is used to exchange goods and services, because you can't always exchange your labor for goods and services. So it's being able to convert your labor into money so that you can use it later to get something from somebody else who wasn't able to share their labor with you. That's what money is. Money is not some altruistic social engineering tool, which they try to make it. And the less you value money, the less it's worth. And just handing it out to everybody, especially when labor is not involved to make it, like when the Federal Reserve just puts it on a computer, makes money less and less valuable. That's the bottom line. And that's why these schemes will never work, and they'll always fail, because it's not have any real value attached to it. But that's real economics talk for them, and they just don't get real economics. So they'll continue to try schemes like this, and people will buy into it because it feels good and it's social justice and all these other key catchwords that go on. Check up in the side chat while the markets are open in here. Refresh. Did I see Rooster Cogburn jump in? Hey, Black Cat, good morning. Hey, thanks for the stream yesterday morning. I didn't get to catch all of it, but I did get to catch being blacked out as you went through security and having not being able to see what the inside of a security machine looks like. Everybody was pretty disappointed in the side chat about that. We were wanting to see what the inside of that thing looked like. HRM says universal basic income is to put corporatism in check, price control, supply and demand, etc. Partially, but it's also to put the ones that the corporate entities that are in charge now as the monopolies. It establishes them as being the only ones in charge, and they don't have any competition. Also, it's dual purpose, I guess you'd say. It's corporate cronyism. What's this? Hold on. Is Jay Sparks having problems with his homestead there? What's this? Wait, you couldn't dig a well because you need a minimum of 160 acres, Sparks? Wait. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you need 160 acres to dig a well? Why can't you do? I mean, there's places on an acre that have a well around here. Why does acreage size have anything to do with it? I'm confused by that. Moving on. Scroll down here. Walter Davis says every time they talk about equal income, I think about Soylent Green. When the cop says we got it real good, and there are people who want to take it all away. All right. Yeah, that'll be the big thing. People that actually have work will be doing so much better than those who just get government handouts, just like it is now. I mean, you're going to have to pay people more to do something than you pay people to do nothing. You can't expect the people that are actually working and doing things in an economy to take the same amount of money you're giving to free to somebody else just for social justice or some other special term you want to term it. It's not going to work. People are not, they're not going to work. Like Atlas Shrugged, people are just going to quit. Um, people want to value their labor, and then money is a representation of that. Money is not the end all be all, but is what people use to value their labor and put a value on it. And it's always going to be the key crux to any of these problems. Walter says, in the end, technical jobs will be done with machines, and unskilled masses will be digging holes and filling them back in, picking farm produce by hand. Possibly. Or they could automate all that too, Walter. You never know. Maybe they'll just ship everybody off to Mars and have them start the colony there. That'll be the labor for all the humans that are left around. Hey, Iron Witch has joined us. Good morning. How are you? Thanks for checking in. Hey, Tommy Boy Nine's with us, pushing sticks in the machine, then going to cut the grass. All right, right on. Cut the weeds. Hashtag slash the weeds, huh? Yeah, it is kind of that season, right? Get ahead of them while you can. 86 degrees where you are, Tommy Boy. Nice, nice. That's a little too warm for me. We've having some nice showers blow through in the evening. Last couple of days, it's been nice and cool at night. You know, it's not been terribly hot either, so it's still springtime. Fortunately for us. HRM says people could solve their own problems with money rather than having corporate structures discriminate. Capitalism could flourish without too much regulation, right? It would be a nice way to go, but we are so far away from that. It's almost not even funny how far away from any real free markets we are, where everything is overregulated, overtaxed. Every half of everything you do economically is influenced by the Federal Reserve because they control the price of money, and they set the price and value of money at the bank level, and then it trickles down from there. Rooster Cogburn says most likely a county ordinance, no water for you. Oh, talking about Sparks' problem. That doesn't make sense where Sparks is at. Maybe that's something new because of some of the water problems. I don't know. Because the counties do the well permits. Walter says when the CPU and the concrete mixer breaks and no one knows how to fix it, they'll no longer have concrete. Right? It's a slow collapse after that. People don't know how to do real things, and only the computer's been doing them for so long, and we end up with not being able to do anything. And the concrete is probably just the biggest example of how bad that could go really quick. We are very dependent on people being able to do lots of things, building and making things. Dow's down 200 points, Tommy Boy. You got any gold on order? It's still staying below 1,300. The trade talks haven't really affected the metals. They've pretty much stayed where they've been the last 2-3 weeks. Chance says things are desperate down on the border. Both sides are on edge. Is that right? All right, I think they caught up here. Slow boil, right? Truth freeze, right? 79 degrees for Iron Witch. Going to be a hot one. Yeah, if it's 79 already. Cool, Tommy boy. I get it. It's one of those things when the price dropped back a couple months ago, take advantage of all you can get and then reevaluate. Definitely get it while you can and get all your priorities straight, right? HRM says money markets. Do you mean gender cash flow? I think you meant a different word than gender, didn't you? I don't understand that. And simple interest, there are too many wage earners and chairs push buttons, right? Yeah, people working that like these guys right here that work off of interest and how they play the margins, push buttons, and make money off of pretty much nothing. That's what makes money less and less valuable too. And the Fed pumps the money out into the system more and more because of things like that. It's a self-flicking ice cream cone, and that's why the money's devalued over time. It's less and less hard to get it. But yet they think if they make it easier to get, it'll solve problems. It doesn't make any sense because money is not the. Yeah. Anyway, we could go on and on about that, I guess. So I'll be waiting. I'm sure there'll be more news coming out about possible tariffs and trade war the rest of the week. But meanwhile, we were sending destroyers through the Straits of Taiwan as a symbol of freedom of movement, right? Of course. And it had nothing to do with trying to poke China in the eye over the whole thing. And then we have carriers going in the Mediterranean, which are strangely absent from the headlines today on the Drudge. Where are those? Of going into the whole situation with Iran. Is it really not on any of the? Okay, here we go. So yeah, we're deploying another aircraft carrier into the Med, trying to push Iran back on their whole statement of closing the oil shipping through the Straits of Hormuz, which I'm still shocked that Saudi Arabia doesn't build a pipeline to somewhere else, in Kuwait in particular, stop this madness that we've been dealing with for 40 years or whatever. Whoa. Are we back? Okay. Froze up there for a second. That was weird. We've been dealing with for 40 plus years of the Iranians holding people hostage using the Straits of Hormuz, whether they mine it or just to threaten and intimidate and cause excessive security presence in that area for things. But it seems to be the situation. It's like Kuwait could have paid for a pipeline to go across Saudi Arabia down to the Red Sea or something. I don't know, over to the Med. Probably been cheaper than all these years of all the madness that we've had to deal with going through the Straits of Hormuz. But yeah, they've deployed the USS Abraham Lincoln. Supposedly there was some sort of intelligence, quote, end quote, information that there was an impending attack from Iran. Like they are that stupid. I don't know who would think that Iran was stupid enough to do something like that, but that's the rumors. And Bolton is leading this charge. So the same idiots have been doing foreign policy for the last 20 years is back in place and doing the same stupid flexing on people, I guess you'd say. Midwest is stocking spaghetti. Hey, that's a good rule for the month. You know, if you listen to Uncle Al, Midwest, you know, pasta was last month, but that's all right. We'll give you a pass. You can always catch up. I don't know that you need to catch up, Midwest. I think you're ahead of most of us on the prepping game. You're just sandbagging out there, laying low. Yeah, impending Wall Street Journal and warning of impending Iranian attack plans. Because you got to figure, if you're a country like Iran, right? You're not just going to do a flash in the pan attack, right? You know, these people have been doing third and fourth generation warfare before it even had a term, third and fourth generation warfare. And you're just going to do an ad hoc terroristic style one-time attack? No, that doesn't make any sense. If you're going to execute something, you're going to have to execute it to get things to the brink to where you have an advantage over the other guy, and just you don't see how it's going to happen. Like the amount of effort that would have to be put into that and the size and scale is just unreal. But yet they think that because the retribution would come quickly. Everybody's seen what happens when you swat the bear. I don't think Iran is stupid, but somehow they think they have intelligence that they're going to do this quote unquote attack. So the escalation in tensions coming from European diplomats said Monday that if Iran appeared poised to breach portions of the 2015 nuclear pact that restricted Tehran's program. Oh, so they're not planning on attacking anybody. They're just planning on developing nuclear systems or whatever. Could be for power or for missiles or weapons or otherwise. They're tying it into a barrage by Hezbollah last week into Israel. So last month, the U.S. said it was ending waivers for Iran to export oil, right? We talked about that. That is leading to a whole nother problem. But the intelligence showed that Iran drew up plans to target U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria to orchestrate attacks in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait near Yemen through proxies in the Persian Gulf with its own armed drones. There's also been intelligence that Iran may be seeking to target U.S. forces in Kuwait. Sure, to what end? What good would it do to Iran to do any of that? You got to wonder. Are they really going to cause an uprising with all the Arab states and all the, I guess not the Arabs, Central Asian countries? Because the Iranians don't get along with the Arabs either. Are they really going to cause an uprising and everybody's going to resist the American occupation? Do they think Iran has that much sway in the resistance? I don't get it. So, but let's warmonger and rattle some sabers a little bit and see what happens. It's about the best you can say about that. All right, HRN, take it easy. Get crack-a-lacking. Right, Truth? We're poking all kinds of warfare in different multiple ways. Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela. It's everywhere. Midwest, you're slow. I doubt it. It is all OPSEC, though. Yes, it's all OPSEC. Candles. There you go, Tommy. What candles is a good thing to stock up on, right? I'm still trying to get some solar-powered operation working around here. False flag with Iran has been in the works now, says Truth Freeze, right? It's all about timing, right? Air and opportunity, trying to close those two together. Yes, the agendas are out there. People conspire regularly. Again, to what end? other than their own aggrandizement, because really it doesn't protect America. I mean, with all the problems on our southern border, does anybody really consider anything our foreign policy to be to protect America? Sad state of affairs. It's like you could send any of us, take anybody you know in your life, you could send them to a staff level strategic warfare school one of these generals go to, like where they learn strategy. You take them, send them to these schools. You could send any layman to these schools. They could go to that school, learn what they need to learn about strategic warfare, then turn around, look at the U.S.'s current strategy and go, what are we doing? What is this madness? Because it doesn't make sense. It is madness. And at some point, I guess you could say the general's just doing what they're told and just following orders, I guess, at some point. Right, Walter, they're going to do what they're planned on doing? Yeah, maybe, possibly. Yeah. Why wouldn't they? Why would they trust anything in agreement with anybody outside their area of influence, right? It's a sad state of affairs. So yeah, lots of warfare talk on the radar, on the horizon. Dow is down 300. There we go. Keep riding it to the bottom. I'm sure the trade deal will come out shortly and save the day. Possibly. But it's just sure signs how disastrous the market is without more stimulus, which the president called for. These things aren't going any higher. I've been talking about it. Dow's showing right now at 26,150. I've been saying it for over a year. The Dow is not going to break significantly above 26,000 until there is a significant interest rate drop or QE, etc. Because it's all on drugs. It's like somebody being high on heroin, they can't get high again unless they get more of it. It's just the way it goes. Walter says Venezuela kicks off, Mexico will be the next global hotspot, and then we'll have it on our doorstep. Well, we'll be in the middle of it, Walter. It's not like there's probably not already pre-positioned assets in Mexico from various countries to create that instability as necessary to destabilize the border and everything like that. They in some ways you can say they've already destabilized the border enough to take up a lot of resources, if not fully military resources, but to a certain degree. There's things they couldn't do in Canada, obviously. It's hard to destabilize from the Canadian side, but you already, it's a destabilization of the southern border. And people's failure to realize that, I think, for decades has been our biggest problem. Failure to defend our southern border as necessary is to treat it like so many other places. Everybody's all in fear of militarizing the border when it's nothing more than it is what it is. But people always felt it was a scar on America's image or whatever to militarize the border. It's like you got to do what you got to do. It's better to militarize our border than to militarize the Middle East. How about that? It'd have been a lot more time and space savings and money savings too. Midwest says it makes more sense if you look where the corporations need to go next. Well, that's always the next agenda, right? Oh, is it really that nefarious? You hate to think of it that way, right? But yes, you have to look at what resources need to be extracted and used. Because the federal government already owns Nevada, and we've got a lot of those resources that they can take advantage of. But next, they're going to go to lots of Central Asian countries have lots of stuff. And one of the reasons China's building their Belt and Road Initiative is to take advantage of that and to enter into trade. But we've lost the ideals of America free trade and we just go and take it now. We use the corporate hammer versus free trade, and corporations just move in where we make way for them now, right? Chance says, you think we'll see another Gulf of Tonkin? I mean, how else would the American population get on board, right, Chance? I mean, aren't people sick and tired of all this warfare? Even though, like the meme says, or like the picture says, and it's been around for a decade now, I think, America's not at war. The Marine Corps is at war. America's at the mall. And it's been that way. Americans haven't felt the real impacts of any of the last 20 years. You know that. I mean, only people that are in the community know what the effects of the war has been for the last 20 years. And yet, you know, the average American, like, oh yeah, I guess we've been at war, kind of, but you know, it doesn't affect them. They haven't seen it, so it doesn't matter. And to just add another incursion into a country like Iran or something would be nothing to them. And so they see it on the news for a 5-minute spot, and like, okay, we're going to go into Iran because of something made up or real or not, right? Yeah, Gulf of Tonkin indeed. But you have to get the politicians on board to sell it to the constituents, and it's got to be a big show. So yes, we could see another incident. I figure it would take something. It's not just gonna. They got to maintain some sort of a impression of being above board, right? They just can't go full rogue, even though it seems like they're rogue to no end already. That's a good question. And at this point, it almost feels like they could do it without a Gulf of Tonkin incident. It's like, why even check the box? They haven't requested authority to have a war since World War II, so why start now? Yeah, African minerals, right? Truth. The SF and people have been in Africa for about 20 years now, too. That's all been a work in progress. Walter, we won't be fighting on the other side of the world anymore? Why do you say that? Oh, you mean if Venezuela kicks off, right? It'd be on our doorstep instead of somebody else's? Potentially. And that's probably Russia and China's lever. That's probably why Venezuela may have become a central point where it's at. You know, you got to figure Russia and China planted 20 years ago, identified Venezuela as a very prosperous country that is at our doorstep, and they can get their foot in the doorstep there at the doorstep of America with all those resources. Gives them great leverage in the region, and maybe that was their. Again, Chinese are excellent at playing 10. The Chinese are better at 20D chess than Trump is. I know that, and better than most of our planners and other people. While we were busy with Taiwan, they were thinking, you know, projection. Hey, Black Cat, have a good day. Go do work stuff, right? We're going to be checking out here soon anyway. Do work stuff ourselves. Biker Bob has joined us, our favorite Canadian. What's up, Biker? No offense to Food Forest or any other Canadians that might join us, but Biker Bob's a long time YouTube cohort. Canada's going to go right in your election. You think so, Biker? Right? I know Trudeau seems like he's on his last leg. Nobody likes him because he hasn't done anything for a minute. He's just making everybody mad. Right? Truth. The information operations are deep. War is peace. Yeah. Yeah, we're getting lots of mind control, mind groupthink out there, aren't we? Midwest says a lot of money to be made from tearing them down and refinancing, building back up, right? Well, that's the way Keynesian economics works too, right? Midwest, and that's been the key to the. You want to talk about the what's the best way to describe it? This diabolical relationship between the military-industrial complex and the Fed. Dumping money into the military-industrial complex is the best deal central bankers could get because the military-industrial complex is dead weight. It causes the destruction of money, which is required in a debt-based system, to do that, refinance and build more, because military stuff just disappears. It gets blown up, it gets destroyed. They dump it in the ocean, whatever. They leave it, they leave 10,000 Humvees in Iraq to be, left there for the populace. It's dead weight loss, which is exactly what a debt-based economy has to have in order to sustain and keep itself going. So central bankers love the military-industrial complex process of breaking things and destroying things, so they can, loan more money to get more things, which feeds the central bankers. Yes, good point. Why? Yeah, beg forgiveness, right, Walter? I don't know. At this point, like I said, we haven't asked permission in forever, so why not just go ahead and start it on your own? Make up the excuse later. Chance B likes the mall better, right? Yeah, the mall would be a. Do people still go to the mall though? I think it's just all on Amazon now. I think we have to change that sign. America's on Amazon.com. Nobody goes to the mall anymore. Well, I guess actually, I was surprised. I went to the mall a little while back. The mall's still full of teenagers. It's funny, even with all the social media and all the modern whatever the way of doing things. Kids still populate the mall. Still full of teenagers running around trying to get in trouble, which is a good thing in some ways, I guess. At least it's not totally antisocial, locked in your little room and stuff, like us here on the internet. like us here in this chat, just sitting here talking to each other. At least people get out and still do things. Midwest says, then taking the minerals and oil when they can't pay the debt. Are you talking about other countries get into refinancing when they get like Venezuela and stuff like that? I mean, leveraging it against other countries, not just warfare. Yeah, the central bankers are playing a big game, and they're going to take us down with it. I've had an idea to do so many different videos on the nature of central banking, but I just don't have the production skills to do it true justice. But the central bank is really, if people understood how it controls everything and influences everything, that like was it not Wilson, but who was it said, if America, oh, was it Ford? If it was Ford that said, if Americans knew what the banks were doing, there'd be a revolution tomorrow, or something like that. I think it was Henry Ford, maybe somebody back at that time when the central bank had been formed. Shortly thereafter, it had just been like America would be up in arms, and yet Americans have been told they just won't listen. I mean, if Ron Paul was able to get the message out pretty clearly, if you could get past the "in the Fed" talk, the message was pretty clear about how the central bank is destroying things, but people didn't want to hear it because things were too good. When things are good, people don't like to listen. Eustace Mullins says Truth Freeze has good info on the central banks. Eustace Mullins. Okay. Is that on the internet, on the YouTube here, Truth Freeze? Bush Sr. said it. Yeah, Bush Sr. There's that quote that if they knew what they'd done, they'd come at us with pitchforks. Yeah, but he was talking more about all the foreign policy alone, not just central banks. But yeah, we were warned, and yet didn't follow through with the warnings of how banks would steal the continent from us. Was that was one of the founders that said that if we allowed a central bank, that the country would be stolen from us, out from under our children or whatever, something like that. Walter, thanks, Walter. We want to make sure we get those algorithms going. Central banks are good. Yeah, we got to keep the algorithms happy, right? Good central banking. That's about the yeah. So the Dow is down, just feeling it out for this Chinese trade deal apparently, and all the other things going on behind closed doors we don't know about. Right, Wes? we are. The thing is, I guess the proverbial we, and the fact that as a nation we have lost our way and things are not rosy, and we're only going to get worse as far as culture and society is structured. But that doesn't mean individual we are. I mean, individually we might, survive, I guess you'd say. Um, so maybe it's all how you perceive it when you say it like that, Wes. But things are definitely not going to go the way everybody thinks it's going to go. Uh, we've been talking about it on here a while. It's like our grandchildren are not going to have it as well as we do. They might have shiny new technology, but they're not going to have as much freedom. They're not going to have as much free time to do things and as much independence to go out and be productive or have ingenuity and produce new things, and the creativity that goes along with production and invention and everything else. Incrementalism is going to take us all downhill. I'm sorry I had to bring you to that realization, Wes. It would be better to break apart what is currently here than have to endure what's coming if this thing stays together. I would say that's what I've said for a long time. It would be better to live independently apart than enslaved together, right? And then we could, after we broke apart and independent, then we could figure out how to reorganize. Chance, you're coming out for elk season, Southwest Colorado. Why don't you come up to Nevada, Northwest Nevada, get some elk tags. They're hard to get though. I got one elk tag 4 years ago, and it was only a depredation tag. It wasn't even like a main area tag because they got one little herd they're trying to keep out of an area. And yeah. That's about as successful as I've been for elk. The lizard people are just increasing the population for better meat harvest. It's a good point, Wes, right? They're doing a horrible job at producing good quality meat, though, just like they're just in it for the numbers now, because they're definitely not getting any quality out of that harvest with the way things are going. 2036 is going to suck. Why 2036? What happens in 2036? Is that our 12 years till? Well, that's more than 12 years till the end of the planet, though. Thought we only had 12 years, Wes. How can we get ahead that far? Last I heard, 12 years is what we've got, and that's it. That's what the Beto and the occasional Cortex were saying, right? 12 years. All right, I've ran my mouth long enough, folks. I got to get out of here. Appreciate everybody joining. Just keep an eye on this trade war, real world situation. Whether it's a war, it'd be so sad if we kicked off a war in Venezuela. It just makes you shake your head. It's just been a slow boil forever, and yet we're still going to stick our thumb in that. Hopefully not. And then you got obviously Iran, which we putting our fingers into that mess, and then Russia and China pushing back in the various areas, which could cause an incident that, Chance talking about Gulf of Tonkin, just giving them an excuse. It's like two bullies on the playground waiting to see who throws the first punch so they can say, hey, he threw the first punch. It's almost exactly what it's like. Somebody wants to not get blamed later on from the principal, which there is no principal anymore. So just fight. It's not like the people have any control to chastise their governments about going to war. It's not like there's a mom and dad there to reel them in, to correct them in their ways. Because the adults, what was supposed to be the the people, supposed to be the adult in the room, have let their children, the government's, run out of control. All right, folks, have a good day. Thanks for checking in. We will see you next time out here on the YouTube. Live free.